Texas's Attorney General is impeached. Gavin Newsom threatens Ron DeSantis with kidnapping charges, and Trump is indicted again. And more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. A Tennessee woman allegedly went to a website and paid a hitman $10,000 in Bitcoin to murder the fiancé of a man she became hiking friends with after they met on Match.com. The name of the website was Online Killers Market. Boy, that doesn't seem suspicious. After that, did she buy some drugs from We're Definitely Not Cops, Bath and Beyond? She also made threats in real life to the fiancé, which may be what led authorities to investigate her. She was arrested after 2 months passed without the woman being killed, and she reached out to the hitman asking what was taking so long. Because trying to pay someone in Bitcoin to take a human life is one thing, but being a Karen, now we really got to bring her in. This is why you don't complain about the quality of service to the service provider. You do it on Yelp. Good luck getting any murder business with only 1 star. Speaking of criminal behavior, last month, a whistleblower revealed that the FBI and the Department of Justice have a document that allegedly exposes a plot between Joe Biden while he was vice president and a foreign national to exchange money for policy decisions. Senator Chuck Grassley said, "We believe the FBI possesses an unclassified internal document that includes very serious and detailed allegations implicating the current president of the United States. The FBI's recent history of botching politically charged investigations demands close congressional oversight." Man, don't you miss the days when the current president wasn't implicated in something sinister? I think the last time there was a president like that, it was Harrison Ford from Air Force One. The only thing he was implicated in was being awesome. This week, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, a Republican, began the process of holding FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress for not complying with a subpoena to turn the document over. I can't blame Comer. He ordered Wray to bring the document, and he didn't do it. What's that, Shelley? Oh, the FBI did bring the document and let committee leaders look it over. Ranking members of the House Oversight Committee, Jamie Raskin, a Democrat, said, "We have the FBI, which came over to us, brought the very document we're looking for, and gave even the majority, I think 90 or 95% of what was being asked for, which was the document and all kinds of surrounding answers to questions about the document." Now it seems like the goalpost has shifted a little bit. Comer was essentially angry because the FBI only let the committee leaders look at the document instead of handing it over to the committee. Eventually, FBI Director Wray allowed the entire committee to review the document, and Comer canceled the vote to hold him in contempt. The document allegedly shows that Biden was allegedly paid $5 million by a Ukrainian company as part of a bribery scheme, allegedly, which Biden dismissed as malarkey, proving once again that he is just too old. Comer and Raskin came to different conclusions after seeing the same document. Comer believed there was an ongoing investigation into this matter that was being hidden, while Raskin thought the FBI looked into it and found no reason to investigate further. This proves that Democrats and Republicans live in 2 entirely separate realities. If you ever decide to break the law, make sure you're wearing either a Trump or Biden t-shirt while you're doing it. This way at least half of Congress will defend you and say you did nothing wrong. But Republicans aren't willing to defend everyone on their team. 2 weeks ago, the Texas House of Representatives, which is overwhelmingly Republican, voted to impeach the Republican State Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Paxton called this House vote a politically motivated sham and said, "Their plot imperils critical litigation my office has brought against the Biden administration to end the federal government's attacks on our constitutional rights and the rule of law." Yeah, because no one wants to protect Biden more than Republicans in Texas. It's like accusing Megatron of reminding Optimus Prime to get his yearly physical. Do Transformers go to doctors or mechanics? Anyway, this impeachment stems primarily from allegations of corruption in which Paxton obstructed an FBI investigation and changed his office's stance on COVID restrictions to benefit Nate Paul, a real estate investor who donated $25,000 to Paxton's 2018 campaign. Paul has now been arrested. Paxton has been suspended from his duties. He will be removed from office if the Texas Senate votes to impeach him. That trial will take place no later than August 28th. Paxton may feel good about his chances since his wife is a Texas senator, is what I would say if it weren't for the fact that Paxton is also embroiled in a very public extramarital affair that will feature in his impeachment trial. So, yeah, things aren't looking too good for Paxton. Gotta admit, though, this is kind of impressive. Being too corrupt for Republicans? That's like being too pandering for Democrats. Although Republicans are pretty good at pandering, too. And Democrats are pretty good at corruption. Boy, you'd think they'd get along considering how much they have in common. More after the break. Welcome back. The Supreme Court agreed to hear a case over a trademark dispute involving a man, Steve Elster, who was turned down when he tried to trademark the term Trump too small in 2018 and use it to sell merchandise criticizing Donald Trump. This phrase was inspired by Marco Rubio in 2016, mocking Trump for having small hands. The Trademark Office rejected this phrase as it's against the law to trademark anything using a person's name without their consent. An attorney for Elster said, "We look forward to defending the right to convey core political messages on trademarks. The government's attempt to burden political speech by granting public figures a monopoly over speech about them in the marketplace is indefensible." Okay, but free speech wasn't rejected here. What was rejected was the trademark for the phrase Trump too small, an expression Elster admitted was inspired by Marco Rubio. Does that mean Rubio also gets a cut? Also, it's hard for me to believe that the Trump administration was behind this decision, since Trump puts his name on anything. Speaking of Trump, he's been indicted. Again. This time over his handling of classified documents after he left the White House. This marks the second time in the history of the U.S. that a former president was indicted, the first being Trump's former indictment. And the third time in a year, headlines have been made by the results of a special counsel investigation. What is that saying? May you live in interesting times? Well, we certainly live in unprecedented times. Trump faces 7 charges ranging from withholding a document or record to conspiracy to obstruct justice, with a maximum sentence ranging from 5 to 20 years. He was ordered to appear in court on Tuesday. The legal experts say that Trump could still be elected president despite his indictment, since the Constitution doesn't say anything about criminal status in its section on eligibility to be president. Trump has said he won't leave the 2024 presidential race regardless of indictments, and that probably will enhance by numbers. So who knows? In 2025, we might be the first nation in history to have a president running the country from the jailhouse instead of the White House. Although, Trump could just pardon himself. This news broke on the same day that Biden, who also has his own issues with classified documents, was accused of accepting a $5 million bribe from a Ukrainian company. Unprecedented times indeed. Speaking of crime, hundreds of white women protested at the Colorado Capitol building after being urged by women of color to use their privilege to do something about gun violence. Because now, women of color need white women to speak for them, apparently, which is not racist in any way. They probably appreciated Gavin Newsom proposing a 28th Amendment that he said will enshrine in the Constitution common-sense gun safety measures that Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and gun owners overwhelmingly support, while leaving the Second Amendment unchanged and respecting America's gun-owning tradition. But that doesn't go far enough for these women. They're demanding Colorado Governor Jared Polis sign an executive order banning all guns for everyone used for any reason, including even police officers. A spokesperson for Polis said, "The governor takes the weighty responsibility of executive action and the trust Coloradans place in him to govern responsibly, seriously, and will not issue an unconstitutional order that will be struck down in court simply to make a public relations statement." Yeah. First of all, white women might not be the most powerful group to use to undo the Second Amendment, since they weren't even allowed to vote until the 19th Amendment. Second of all, having white skin doesn't give you the power to grant wishes. I'm pretty sure that's blue skin, since you need to be a genie to get something like this to pass. The Daily Beast received backlash for calling Casey DeSantis, wife of Florida Governor and 2024 presidential nominee Ron DeSantis, the Walmart Melania. Walmart Melania? I didn't know Casey DeSantis was made in China. The Daily Beast called DeSantis this in reference to a jacket she wore featuring the state of Florida and an alligator with the slogan, "Where woke goes to die." This reminded many of Melania once wearing a jacket with the expression, "I really don't care, do you?" Look, if you're going to attack someone, do it for their merit, not their looks. For example, how DeSantis' jacket is factually incorrect. Florida isn't where woke goes to die, it's where New Yorkers go to die. Fox News accused Tucker Carlson of violating his contract by launching a show on Twitter. While Carlson's show on Fox News was canceled last month, Fox says he's still under contract with the network until 2025, and that this Twitter show violates that contract as they consider it competition. Carlson's lawyers say this is an attack on his First Amendment rights. Tucker was shocked by this accusation. I think. Honestly, he always looks shocked. He has resting, perplexed face. Hey, want to feel old? This is what the meme Sudden Clarity Clarence looks like today. The state of Florida paid for 36 illegal immigrants to be flown aboard 2 flights from San Antonio, Texas to Sacramento, California. This is similar to how they flew immigrants to Martha's Vineyard last year. California Governor Gavin Newsom criticized DeSantis, calling him a small, pathetic man. No word on whether or not Newsom is going to try and trademark small, pathetic man. That may already be owned by Chris Brown. Newsom threatened to file kidnapping charges against Ron DeSantis for intentionally misleading the immigrants on where they were going. Florida defended paying to fly immigrants to California, with a spokesperson for the Florida Division of Emergency Management saying, from left-leaning mayors in El Paso, Texas, and Denver, Colorado, the relocation of those illegally crossing the United States border is not new. But suddenly, when Florida sends illegal aliens to a sanctuary city, it's false imprisonment and kidnapping. This sounds inhumane to some, but on the bright side, if you ever want to leave Texas, all you have to do is hide your birth certificate and speak with an accent, and you'll get an all-expense-paid trip out of there, courtesy of Florida. Unfortunately, you might end up in California. As of this recording, kidnapping charges have not been filed against Ron DeSantis. I'm not sure that threat will intimidate him, though. If Newsom really wants to scare him, he should threaten to send Florida all of California's failed DJs. They're just like illegal immigrants. They traveled somewhere seeking better life, and while many empathize with them, when it comes time to actually house them, no one seems to want to do it. And after the break, Mississippi will require permits to protest. Welcome back. Starting July 1st, Jackson, Mississippi will require a permit in order to protest near the governor's mansion or any other government buildings. The Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, an advocacy group, filed a federal lawsuit against this rule, claiming it violates the First Amendment. The lawsuit states those who peacefully protest without state government authorization and who are charged with crimes for doing so may be prosecuted and sentenced to prison. This chills protected speech. In response, Jackson officials said, "We asked white women to protest the First Amendment. That's all it takes to undo it, right?" Now, federally, some types of protests do require a permit. These include ones that would block traffic, involve sound amplifying devices, or take place in certain parks or plazas. But the people being criticized getting to decide whether or not they're going to allow people to criticize them near their offices, it's like a basketball player telling referees they're not allowed to call fouls on them. You're allowed to blow your whistle, just not anywhere near this arena. Political activist and philosopher Colonel West announced he's running for president.
In these bleak times, I have decided to run for truth and justice, which takes the form of running for president of the United States as a candidate for the People's Party.
The People's Party's platform involved removing corporate money and influence from politics and enacting term limits in Congress. While a long shot, West is an exciting alternative to Biden and Trump, mainly because he's only 70. With a spry chicken like that in office, maybe we'll only hear about the president falling 4 times a year instead of 9. West wasn't the only new entry into the 2024 presidential race this week. Former Vice President Mike Pence announced he would run as a Republican candidate. Man, All these new Republican presidential hopefuls feels like when they announce new characters for Super Smash Brothers. Ron DeSantis has joined the battle. Mike Pence has joined the battle. King DDD has joined the battle. Oh wait, that's just Chris Christie. And by the way, I don't think you should make fun of Chris Christie's weight. You should only mock him for things he can control, like his flawed policies, hypocritical stances, or his weight. Seemingly, the only Republican not running for president is New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, who in a piece he wrote for the Washington Post said he wants to focus on policy in the party rather than just Trump, which is not clear from the title of his op-ed. Anyway, when has Donald Trump ever dominated political conversation? For 8 straight years, half of which he wasn't even in office for. A lot of Republicans are worried that the more GOP presidential candidates there are, the more it will help Trump in the primaries, as all their messages will be diluted, and the more Trump is attacked, the more he will stand out the most, like he did in 2016. With all these candidates, whoever wins the nomination is going to have to find extraordinary measures to thin the field. I just hope they don't do it by reaching out to the same guy that woman in Tennessee did. And if they do, I just hope they at least have the decency to only complain about them on Yelp. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube censorship and demonetization. You can also set a monthly limit. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.